Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Cabral Concept. Great to have you here today on our first host call of the weekend. Really looking forward to getting back into our community's questions. It feels like forever since I've been able to answer these, but actually, last weekend we went through quite a few. We went through probably about 15 questions from our community. Really looking forward to doing the same this weekend. I think it's just been a long week overall, so it does feel like it's been a while since I've been able to answer our community's questions. The good thing is, though, I've been putting out a new weekly video on COVID-19 and simply keeping people up to date on what the actual statistics are, what the actual numbers are as to what's going on in the United States and, of course, around the world too. So if you haven't checked out those videos, I would go to stephencabral.com/virus, because at the same time, I'm also outlining what is working from a natural health standpoint in terms of nutritional supplements, such as vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, melatonin, turmeric, gotu kola, ginkgo biloba, omega-3s, are the biggest ones. Now, of course, if you just want the top ones, you're going to keep doing your daily foundational protocol. You're going to keep doing your vitamin C, your vitamin D, and your zinc. If you want to start to add on more, I keep talking about all of the things that we do see working and how we are able to better help control inflammation as well throughout the body, in a balancing it to a healthy level. And the reason why I mention that is it really seems that a lot of these inflammatory-based conditions are the people that are not faring as well, meaning like those people with a higher inflammatory level of arachidonic acid and something called PLA2 are not faring as well. And those are people a lot of times with autoimmune-based diseases of the body as well. So again, my recommendation is always, let's find out what the underlying root causes are of your disease. Let's work on those. But at the same time, that does not mean that we can't begin to, from a short-term perspective, work on the inflammation, work on balancing the body at a much healthier systemic-based level. So do feel free to check that out. Each week I put it up on Instagram. Hopefully I won't be doing that much longer. I do hope, and I did share with you this week and even last week, that we're on the downswing. Now, we're not seeing that 10% growth day over day of the actual COVID-19 strain of the coronavirus, which is, by the way, a SARS-based virus as well. So what we're seeing is a decline. That's a good thing, because that means that hospitals will be able to keep up with demand, and that hopefully we will be able to get people back out there living more of a normal life. That's my goal. That's my hope for both mental and physical-based health. But of course, I'll be reporting each and every week on the unbiased perspective of what's going on, what we can be doing, and what we've learned so far. All right, now let's dive into our weekend house calls. I'm going to get right into the questions. And the first question today, and let's just line this up with the actual show. Today is episode number 1541. So just head on over to stephencabral.com/1541, and you can read along with the questions. Okay, today's question is from Jill. The first question is from Jill. Hi, Dr. Cabral. I'm so grateful to have found you and your invaluable resources. I stopped taking hormonal birth control about 1.5 years ago, was using it for 10 years, started having breakouts. They started to get worse, started to get painful cysts under my cheekbone. I've clogged pores. Sometimes slight improvement, and then can get worse. Okay, never had breakouts while using birth control. The longer questions I'm going to just have to shorten in order for us to get our half dozen or so questions in each day. Other lower confidence, brain fog, lower libido due to the acne, feel good, balanced mentally and physically, 33 years old, 5'3", about 113 pounds. Never snack after dinner, do a 12-hour overnight fast, typically 2 bowel movements per day, no digestive issues. I do fasted CrossFit workout 3 to 4 days a week at 5 a.m., yoga 1 to 2 days a week. I barely get 7 hours of sleep. Okay, Well, I think we're good to go. I think we can absolutely figure this out and actually at a very fast pace. So the number one thing that I could recommend to you is to invest in what is the stress hormones mood and metabolism test. It used to be called the thyroid adrenal hormone. There's no doubt in my mind that if you really are a vata pitta, that you are pushing yourself quite hard, or pitta vata. We'll see. That remains to be seen. But doing fasted CrossFit at 5 a.m. 4 days a week, still doing yoga a couple days a week, not even getting 7 hours of sleep, and I'm sure you're working as well, then you're leading to what's most likely estrogen dominance. I mean, probably high testosterone, probably estrogen dominance, which means your estrogen levels are more dominant than your progesterone levels, and potentially higher levels of cortisol. So that's a recipe for acne. It's a recipe for hormonal imbalance and really everything you are dealing with right now. The only way that you would know this is by running a functional medicine lab test. The good news is it's a simple saliva test right at home with just a little finger poke that you're going to give a couple drops of blood. And that will look at your thyroid. Again, poor thyroid function could lead to acne as well. That will look at your vitamin D. It will look at your blood sugar. It will look at your insulin in the morning. Well, look at your hemoglobin A1C and then your insulin in the morning, estrogen, progesterone, DHEA, testosterone, cortisol 4 times a day. It's an amazing test. And Jill, that is absolutely the test to check out. No doubt about it. And then you will get your recommendations based on that. Please do the test during your greatest amount of symptoms. If you don't have a normal cycle, then you'll do it during the greatest amount of symptoms. If not, you'll do it somewhere around the last 5 to 10 days of your cycle, usually between days 19 and 21 on a normal stress day. Thanks, Jill, for writing in. And no doubt about it, we've helped many, many women like you, and I have no doubt we can do the same for you. Okay, Cynthia's up next. I'm a 41-year-old female, and I've been reading Alyssa Vitti's, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, new book about female hormones. She suggests that women should eat, work out, and basically plan their whole life not according to a 24-hour circadian rhythm, but a 28-day infradian. I can never pronounce that. I know exactly what you're talking about, but infradian rhythm. This means change the way you eat, exercise, work, social interactions. I love working out, intermittent fasting every day, but she says this is basically destroying my hormones. What do you think about that? Thanks a million for your answer, Cynthia. Okay, so Cynthia, I know exactly what she's speaking about. This isn't it's a new terminology, but it's not new because hopefully, I would love as many people as possible to take our integrative health practitioner course. You'll learn all about female hormones and you'll learn all about especially in level 2, all about the menstrual-based cycle, and you'll learn about the follicular phase. You'll learn about the luteal phase. You'll learn about follicular stimulating hormone. You'll learn about luteinizing hormone, and you'll learn about progesterone being higher in the last 14 days than estrogen, which is higher in the first 14 days. So again, I teach all of that. It's a great, great lesson that I love being able to teach. So here's the thing. We can't have people change their life based on a 28-day cycle. One is here's the main point. It's completely unrealistic and it's also unnecessary. So remember, the goal is to make the body so healthy that it has what we call infinite flexibility, right? It's a term that I love to be able to use, meaning the key to immortality is infinite flexibility. It's a phrase that's been uttered now many, many times, but I'm happy to say that I've probably gotten that used a little bit more now in the popular vernacular, but I didn't make it up. It was from Deepak Chopra, and Deepak got it from Ayurveda. So again, it is immortality, which again, doesn't really necessarily mean living forever, but it's certainly living a nice, healthy, long life. The key to immortality is infinite flexibility. And that means that you get your body so healthy that you don't have all of these massive hormonal fluctuations. It matters the most for friends of ours like Jill, who I just answered, and many of the women in our practice, meaning that their body is so stressed, or there's a digestive issue, or there's some other issue in the body that they have more what's called estrogen dominance. But that doesn't mean that you need to change things drastically. So here's the thing. A good, healthy nutrition plan, a good, healthy fasting plan, a good, healthy exercise plan should be maintained every day every week of the month. And that leads to healthier body. That's why I tell people all the time, and you have to understand is people say, oh, well, what side of the argument are you on? I'm like, first of all, I don't believe there's an argument. Second of all, I don't have a side. Because what we have to understand is that people like to set up camps, and you're either in this camp or that camp. But that's just not the truth. When you've really just peeled back that onion as far as it can get, you begin to understand that there is no best fast, meaning people should be fasting somewhere between probably 12 and 14 hours per day. based on their constitution, based on their overall health, based on their overall stress. Like, again, going back to Jill previously, should she be doing a 16-hour fast, doing CrossFit each morning with potentially low thyroid, high testosterone, high estrogen? No, that's not the best thing to do, right? But what if someone else, like a more of an endomorphic body type, were to do that? That might be perfectly acceptable. So the thing is, you need to live in balance with your body. And you don't need to change that on a daily basis or a weekly basis. I've been practicing now for many, many years. I've been lab testing thousands and thousands of people. And I can tell you for sure that women can live a simpler life and a more balanced life than having to change their schedule and their social interactions for every other day for their 28-day cycle, or at least each week. So no, I'm not an advocate of that, because I'm an advocate of what's realistic, and what's realistic is living a healthy life. It's living for the point that you're getting in your 7 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables every day, predominantly vegetables. It's following a more Mediterranean diet. It's getting in more omega-3s than omega-6s. And all of these things can be tested for. And so that's why when someone has an issue, well, we can figure out what that issue is. So thank you for writing in. All right. And again, but that's no disrespect to the author. I'm not saying that what she's talking about, this person's talking about, does not exist. It exists. But there's different ways of going about rebalancing that, and certainly creating more stress for having to figure out when you can interact with people and when you can do this, when you can't, is a greater source of stress. So I can't recommend that from a clinical perspective, but that's no disrespect, of course, to the author. Okay. Carolina is up next. Dear Dr. Cabral, I'm a fit, healthy, and happy 43-year-old woman. My only health problems is that my periods are super far apart. I get one every 40 to 50 days. I work out, moderate pace, walk 15,000 steps 6 days a week. I do 16-8 intermittent fasting about 5 to 6 days as well. I eat super healthy, organic, mostly vegan food. I really feel and look amazing. People always think I'm in my early 30s, but I've read this way of life might be the reason my period is all messed up. I really don't want to give up training because it's not super intense, and I don't want to lose my muscle mass as I'm getting older. And according to my Oura Ring, I sleep and have much higher HRV when I'm fasting. So what do you suggest for me in order to re-regulate my female hormones? I would really like to still keep my workouts in intermittent fasting just because I feel so good doing them. But in the end, I've been listening to your podcast for 3 years now. I trust you fully and will follow your advice, whatever it is. Thanks for all you do. Much love, Carolina. All right. Well, thank you, Carolina. Appreciate you writing in, and thank you for being a part of this community. Truly do. So first, let me just answer the thing about the Oura Ring and higher HRV when fasting. So oftentimes people will get a higher heart rate variability when they're using any type of heart rate variability testing device. And I'm a huge advocate of that. I'll be talking more about that in the future. Might even decide to do a short course on HRV since I'm such a huge advocate. But again, it's not the only barometer. It's just a barometer of how well your body's doing in terms of stress. Here's the interesting thing. If really hard workout, really hard training, or a longer fast will raise HRV, not necessarily because it's a positive thing, but it shows that the body is responding to a stressor. So again, a elevated HRV means multiple things. It doesn't always mean, oh, this is a good thing. What you want to look at is your heart rate variability over time. A spike in heart rate variability can sometimes mean stress, which means, okay, say one day your heart rate variability on your Oura Ring was, let's just say, 56, okay? And the next day it was a 42, and the next day then it was a 33. And you say, well, what just happened? I was so good, and then it went down. Well, you may have stressed your body to a higher degree, and then it started to collapse after that. So I actually don't. I like, of course, if there's a reason for a high HRV, I get it because of acute-based training. But really, what I'm looking for is consistent heart rate variability, and of course, there's going to be fluctuation over the period of days, but not massive fluctuation. Okay, let's go back to this. Is it healthy for periods further spread apart? Now, there's different thoughts on this. If you truly are a healthy and happy individual in your entire life, you've had your periods further apart, then okay. But also, what about at 43 years old? Well, at 43 years old, are your periods further apart because of a slowing of your menstrual cycle or really a decrease, lower levels of progesterone? Well, I mean, all of that may be true. So I don't necessarily know that it's unhealthy right now, but what I can tell you is this, is that I could tell you if your body's under greater stress, and then I could tell you for sure if your longer intermittent fasts, in your 15,000 steps per day, in your resistance training, 6 days a week is too stressful on your body. So that's why, Caroline, I really, people again ask me like, what side do you want? Is this right or is this wrong? I don't know, right? I don't know. What I've done is I've studied as many different philosophies of medicine as you can. And I say, okay, in this case, this is what we're going to do. So in your case, Carolina, it's funny because a lot of these questions are around the same type of thing. But there's for whatever reason, it's the lab of the day. The lab of the day is the stress hormones, the mood, and metabolism-based test, right? So we're looking at your thyroid, your adrenal, and your hormones. And if you just run that one lab, lab testing is life-changing. Lab testing is life-changing. I'll tell you this right now. Don't ever believe it's a conflict of interest that I'm recommending lab testing because we help people with lab testing. Because I don't own any of these labs. I don't ever plan on being in the laboratory business. We use what are called CLIA labs. These are basically certified labs that say these labs are doing things by the book. They're getting consistent results. They're not a lot of these marketing-based labs you see out there nowadays. I'm not going to name them, but again, you want to run a lab through a functional medicine doctor. And the reason is that you want your functional medicine doctor to be able to also read that lab and give recommendations as to what you should do. And it changed my life. I didn't find out about them for 2 years after I was dealing with Addison's disease and rheumatoid arthritis and POTS and fibromyalgia and type 2 diabetes and all these issues. Didn't find out about them until a couple years later. That's because this was the late 90s and I didn't know anything about. Neither did many people about functional medicine. Again, Carolina, I can tell you if you're fasting and all of that is affecting you to a negative degree, only after seeing those labs. And so it's kind of a long-winded answer, but that's the truth. Or the other thing is, okay, say you don't want to test. Well, here's what you could do. For a period of 4 weeks, you could do a 12-hour fast instead of 16. It's not dramatically different, but you could do 12 hours to 13 hours. You could do an every other day resistance training day, and you could take your steps down to 12,000 and say, hey, is my central nervous system now more recovered, more relaxed? And at that time, because it's going to take more than one cycle to get back into a 28-day to 30-day cycle or so, but you could say, oh, well, I actually feel more well-rested. I feel just as good. So again, it's not an answer I can give you, but self-experimentation is still okay. And lab testing is the gold standard because now neither one of us have to guess, right? Because we've tested. All right. Thank you, Carolina. Appreciate you writing in. Corey's up next. Long question, so I'm going to give you a little bit of the synopsis here. Hello, for almost 8 years, I've been experiencing various symptoms that affect all the systems of my body. Food intolerances, medication intolerances. I feel dizzy, heart races, headaches, tremors, abdominal bloating, gas, pelvic pain, hypoglycemia, although pre-diabetic with a hemoglobin A1C of 5.7, constipation, reflux, heartburn, muscle aches, bad breath, constant urination, TMJ. Seen over 50 different doctors, all sorts of different specialists. I've run all sorts of different labs. I've eliminated many, many foods, not only lost 50 pounds, was not able to keep the weight on, done all sorts of different testing. I wanted to stop seeing doctors, started practicing Tai Chi. It's all related to anxiety. So to go to see a hypnotherapist, or I should say a therapist, and psychosomatic. I had a body scan that done. Okay, can you please help? Yes. So, this is what I'm recommending. When someone has all sorts of different health issues, and I've answered this before in house calls, and so I think people sometimes test me like, let's see what he says this time. But that's okay. I don't mind answering these things for sure, because if my answer does change, well, maybe it's because I've just seen new developments. But, for the most part, what do you do for the person that has issues all over their body? Like everything is basically wrong. Well, it just means this, that the person is very sensitive body type. And I always give the analogy. Think about this. If you were to pick up a pen in your hand or a straw and you were to hold it in the middle, it's very difficult to let that pen kind of tip one way to the other. But what if you were to take that straw or that pen and hold it at the very, very end, just the tip of it? A slight breeze would be able to move that straw, right? Well, that's the dysautonomia that you were just speaking about a little bit here. So the issue is this, is that the autonomic nervous system is very imbalanced. It's very sensitive. And then anybody that has heart racing, headaches, and all sorts of muscle pain is typically inflamed, right? So they're inflamed. They're not able to balance this properly. Oftentimes a Th2 dominant person. This means they have histamine issues. This means they're sensitive to supplements. They're sensitive to medications. They're sensitive to everything. And so what we need to do is we need to work on a multi-pronged approach. We love running the big five to figure out what's going on. But let's say we didn't run the big five. We would need to ease into a CBO protocol. We would need to clean up the gut. We would need to rebalance the microbiome while at the same time decreasing autonomic nervous system input. That means we would need to practice things, yes, like Tai Chi or meditation or use a PEMF mat or gentle stretching, because we need to calm the nervous system while working on the gut as well. And that's because gut permeability, which is often increased because of stress, leads to a greater amount of health issues. But the bottom line is this, Corey, is that you need to be working with a practitioner. Because here's the thing, you're going to be given a plan, and that's why I feel like, and this happened with me, you don't want to give up on that plan or that practitioner too quick. So work with a practitioner you feel comfortable with. It can be anybody. Work with someone in your local area that's willing to really work with you and give you the time and all those things. Because here's the thing, you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. I had a lot of bad days and I had some good days. And then I started to have a couple more good days and a couple less bad days. And then more good days than bad days. But I'd still have bad days. And at that point, when you have bad days, you want to just kind of throw everything out the window and say, this isn't working. But it actually is. But you have to go through this process of detoxification, of removal, and rebuilding stores in your body. And it can be a slow, painful for anybody with myalgic encephalitis, and you may have ME. But what I can tell you is this, it's all worth it. It takes time. You will get there. You need to be on a plan like a CBO protocol or whatever it is that your practitioner is working with you recommends. And then, of course, what you need to do from there is make changes along the way, tweak things along the way, keep working on overall reduction of inflammation, overall reduction of stress, give your body the sleep that it needs, take that 20 to 30 minute mid-afternoon siesta or nap and get that help. Okay, thank you. Appreciate you, Corey. I know it's a struggle. I really do. I know how frustrating it is. Stick with it. You will get there. Stick with it. No doubt about it. One more question for today, and it's from Ryan. Ryan says, I have a friend with really sensitive hearing, and things like chewing and other background noises can really aggravate her. She says it's misophonia, which seems to fit the symptoms, but from a functional medicine perspective, it's obviously just a name. Any insight into potential imbalances of root causes for misophonia? Thank you. I don't even know if it's pronounced miso or misophonia, but it is. It's basically a sensitivity to loud noises or even just background noises that create anxiety or aggravation or frustration for the person. But again, it's just a name. I mean, there's a name for everything, right? I mean, literally there's a name for everything. It borders on ridiculous because you're like, oh, yeah, I've got this disease and it's called this. Well, it's a disease that you're sensitive to noises? No. In Ayurveda, they've known this for thousands of years and they call it a vatta-based imbalance. It typically happens with someone that has an overactive side of the central nervous system. So basically what happens is our peripheral nervous system sends signals to our central nervous system, which then either sends those to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and relax. This person's obviously not the rest and relax, right? They're in what? They're in the fight or flight or sympathetic nervous system. And I would just think of it as more of the sensitive nervous system. They're sensitive to this input, which means what? Well, it means that we need to calm this person's mind, calm their peripheral nervous system, right? Their intake is too great. So some people have it with smells. That can actually be a toxicity issue. But what I would say for this person is that we need to work on the lifestyle factors of the de-stress protocol. We need to work on the emotions or the emotional traumas. We need to work on meditation. We need to work on deep breathing. We need more sleep. We need to use products like magnesium. We need to use products like Adrenal Soothe. We might need to work on a deep sleep-based protocol. But all of this is correctable. It really is. And that's because we never work on the disease itself, because these diseases are crazy made-up names. They really are. So what we need to work on is the underlying root causes that allowed for the manifestation of these disease names that in conventional medicine, we like to give people a name and say, hey, you're all set. There you go. There's your name. And now you can associate with this. You can become the victim to this disease, and now you can give over your control to this disease. I don't want that for you. I dealt with that many years. I was, a sufferer of Addison's disease, a victim of POTS, a victim of fibromyalgia, a victim of insomnia, a victim of type 2 diabetes, a victim of autoimmune issues, a victim of multiple chemical and food sensitivities. But, I at some point I said, well, maybe not. Maybe I don't have to be a victim of these things. And I started to try to take slowly back a little bit of control of my life. Didn't go well in the beginning, but again, I learned more, I experimented more, I believed more, I relaxed my nervous system more, and I was able to eventually heal, and that's what I want for everyone out there as well. So thank you for tuning in today. Much appreciation. Of course, thank you for all of the reviews on iTunes and other channels. Please keep those reviews coming. It allows us to reach more people, rise in those charts, and of course, allows us to spread the other side of the equation, right? The other side that people have an alternative to a lot of these issues that they've been dealt with and they've said that they've had to suffer from. Well, hopefully they don't much longer. Let's get that information out there. Thank you so much. Take care, and I'll be back tomorrow answering more of our community's questions.
Before you go, I wanted to share a personal story with you. The real reason I began to get well finally is because I figured out what was wrong with me. And that might seem pretty obvious, but I went from doctor to doctor for over 2 years before discovering at-home functional medicine lab testing. These are the labs that enabled me to finally figure out what was wrong with my hormones, blood sugar, electrolytes, and gut health. And once I knew what was wrong, I could then follow a proven plan in order to rebalance my body from the inside out. This is why I believe so strongly in functional medicine lab testing and why I've made it my mission to share these labs with the world. Now at equa.life, you can order an at-home lab test or lab bundle for you and your family and be able to complete it within the week. Plus, the EquaLife difference is that you're not left to try to read and figure out these labs on your own. We explain what your lab numbers mean, what they mean in the much bigger picture, and then how to go about rebalancing your body in order to heal. To see our full selection of lab tests, or to set up a free lab selection call to find out what labs may be best for you, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. And do remember, we ship these all over the world. To find out more and to set up your free lab selection call, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. That's EQUI.LIFE/labs.